Probably 3 out of 10 passersby in Russia will answer in the affirmative to the question whether they have heard of a Kishtin alien named Alyoshenka. It may seem ridiculous, but this fact took place and not everything was as unambiguous as it is claimed these days. Hello everyone, my name is Strange, and I believe that people should know the truth. I had at my disposal a secret essay that was conducted by the Special Services in the Russian Federation. The essay tells about an event that happened in the Urals in 1996 in the vicinity of Kishtin, Kalin village, Chelyabinsk region. In the period from 1995 to 1999, Russian intelligence closely cooperated, or rather merged entire oceans of data in favor of U.S. intelligence. This essay has become one of the myriad drops of this ocean, and so I hold it in my hands. The information I have received indicates not only the presence of alien forces on planet Earth, but also an incredibly important, exciting, terrifying fact. Katerina crept into the alley between the barn and the brick building of the Kaust, looking around. At the end of the alley, a half-dead light bulb was dimly shining, which, by lucky chance, no one had broken. The girl was clutching a small bundle to her chest, which, from a distance, looked like a rolled-up pillowcase. Coming out of the alley, Katya ran across the street and walked briskly, on straight legs, towards the garbage heap near the cemetery. She looked around, hearing some drunken swearing in the distance, and with a trembling hand turned out the bundle. Something fell on a pile of garbage mixed with rotten foliage and earth, and made a barely audible whistle. Katerina crossed herself briefly when she saw the cross over the small cemetery chapel, and ran with a quick step to the alley. Everything that happened to her before and that night, she swore to keep inside her heart until the day she died. It was not even 6 a.m. on the clock when Tamara Vasilievna Prosperino went out to her usual trade, which became familiar to many after 1991, collecting bottles. Tonka Lisp, as her angry neighbors called her, slowly shuffled her feet along the sidewalk, looking into every trash can. The catch was small. After walking along the sidewalk to the building of the village hospital, the woman turned right and decided to visit the local cemetery. It was early and perhaps there was something to be found left on the graves in the evening, if the homeless hadn't stolen it. Approaching the cemetery, Tamara saw a garbage pile and headed towards it. She looked at it with half-blind eyes and couldn't immediately figure out what was in front of her. He was lying face down in the mud. God, I'm sorry. Tamara lisped to herself, "Isn't that a child? A baby, oh my God." The woman leaned forward and grabbed the small body with hooked, arthritic fingers. She hugged it to her chest and looked around. Finding no one, she began to wrap the dirty little body in a dirty hem. Wrapping it up, she headed for her house. At home, she unwrapped the found baby from the hem and carefully placed it on the burned-out sofa. Then she took out of the closet the cleanest thing she had from her clothes, an old down shawl, and swaddled the baby. Strangely enough, she did it well. "I'll feed you now. Everything will be fine now." She left the swaddled baby on the couch while she headed to the kitchen. Of the edibles, there was only a stale loaf of bread, which was immediately soaked with tap water. It was the wet crumbs that were fed to the baby, which, oddly enough, he did not refuse. Obediently, he opened his mouth, caught a crumb with a pink pointed tongue, and absorbed it. Tamara was smiling and slowly rocking Alyosha, wrapped in a handkerchief. "Here, Alyosha." She already gave him a name as soon as she picked him up. "We ate. Let's get some sleep now, and then we'll see what we can do with you." The protocol of testimony, recorded by the investigator of the Kishtin Department of Internal Affairs, Mokichev E.S. I conducted an interrogation of a suspect in the case of theft of a cable from a power line support in the village of Novogorny. During the interrogation, the suspect in the V.F. Nurtinov case testified that he had a mummy of an unknown, humanoid creature in his garage. I suspected an attempt to delay the investigation, but it was also decided to conduct an inspection. During the inspection, the mummified remains of a humanoid embryo were found. A criminal case has been opened on the fact. The protocol of the interrogation of T.B. Prosperina. The suspect claims that she found the baby on a garbage pile and took him to her home. Stubbornly calls the baby Alyosha. She cannot explain how the baby died and where the body disappeared from her house. V.F. Nurtinov, who had previously been involved in a related case, is suspected of stealing the embryo's body. From the explanatory note of the investigator of the Kishtin Department of Internal Affairs, E.S. Mokichev, the remains were transferred for examination. An instruction was received to close the case of the theft of a power line wire and the case of the death of a baby. My office work was terminated in accordance with the order of a higher authority. 1995 to 1996. Major Ismailov once again discharged the clip of his Makarov. Placing the cartridges in a row on the table, reloaded, clicked the clip into the pistol, and discharged it again. So 15 minutes passed, then another 15. The major picked up the phone. "Captain, do I have to wait much longer?" The captain on the other side of the phone clamped the microphone in and swore, "If the major has got something in his head, then by all means take it out and put it down. The year 1996 is in the yard, time is changing, you need to make money and give him a report on some fucking Kishtin in the Urals. Comrade Major, there were some delays in the delivery of photographic materials. Now we are collecting everything, filing it, and I am sending it. 5 more minutes." The major just hung up. The captain heard the beeps. "Wow, well, it's okay, I'll eat him with you." After 5 minutes, Major Ismailov was reviewing the report. He was especially interested in the photographs. There were only 3 of them, and all showed from different angles the mummified remains of an incomprehensible creature, no bigger than an adult man's elbow. Very thin, withered arms and legs, and open abdominal cavity. But what really surprised me was the head. A small face, distorted during mummification, probably by salting, the size of 2 matchboats, high arches of the skull, consisting of 2 lateral bone arches, along which a wide frontal arch ran in front. The back of the skull was similarly opened, the brain substance was missing. Yes, they have always been famous for their dashing in the Urals. They took Alyosha and blew his brains out. The major grinned and looked at the table, on which there were hardly 8 cartridges from the PM. The major gathered them in his palm and began to load the clip. He put the photos aside and picked up the folder with the report. He began to skim through leaf after leaf, filtering out the main thing with his cold mind and tenacious eyes. From the official report of the FSB Analytical Department. As part of the powers of the head of the Department of Investigations of Abnormal Incidents, I studied the initial report on the Kishtin 1 case. Preliminary conclusions. The testimony of Prosperina T.S., who discovered the embryo, hereinafter referred to as the alien, claims that this is a human child. She answered evasive questions about the abnormal structure of the embryo. The testimony of the local electrician V.F. Nerdinov boils down to a single conclusion: the embryo has an extraterrestrial origin, an alien. During prolonged stay in the same room with the alien, V.F. Nerdinov experienced a feeling of nausea and dizziness, panic attacks, and repeatedly pointed out that in an unmummified form the embryo emitted a persistent protein odor, possibly traces of decomposition. The testimony of V.F. Nerdinov is confirmed by the testimony of the investigator of the Kishtin Department of Internal Affairs, E.V. Mokachev. The creature was eviscerated and mummified by V.F. Nerdinov. It was not possible to preserve the internal organs of the alien. From the testimony of T.V. Prosperina's daughter, she personally saw the creature, claims that it was alive and tried to express itself with whistling sounds. It had bright yellow round eyes without eyelids, a flat, vertical pupil. The moment of the creature's death cannot be described. Major Ismailov cleared his throat. There was definitely something in it. My gut told me that there was something behind this essentially nonsense that could eventually turn into his personal elevation, if the case was properly excavated and then presented where it needed to be. The major cleared his throat again and looked dreamily at the ceiling, then stopped smiling and picked up the phone. "Captain, make me some coffee and hurry up." Ismailov pulled a sheet of blank paper towards him, signed the order on top, and began to print slightly clumsy lines, trying to write in block letters, so that the stupid captain would understand everything later. Conduct a detailed investigation into the Kishtin 1 case, re-interrogate witnesses. In case of denial, conduct an interrogation in the local Department of Internal Affairs in a closed cell. Use active combat psychotropic substances and other stimulation methods. Regarding the subjects of the case after receiving the data, Prosperina TV to be transferred to a mental hospital for compulsory examination. A positive result is required. To oblige medical personnel to cooperate. Then the major put a dash and carefully wrote the word vegetable on the paper, circling each letter several times. Nerdinova VF eliminate, if possible, an accident related to production. If the subject is currently not employed, then according to the circumstances. To E.S. Mokachev to clearly inform that the case has been taken under control, to take a subscription on non-disclosure. According to the circumstances, if there is no loyalty, liquidate it. Hide where the data leak came from. An employee of the Department of Internal Affairs of Kishtim reported to the FSB office in Yekaterinburg, our recruited agent, a special order. It is likely that the embryo is of extraterrestrial origin. The statement is obviously considered true, while having a relationship with the woman who carried it. This is indicated by the fact that the embryo was found in a garbage pile, an attempt to hide pregnancy and childbirth. I ordered to investigate all cases of pregnancies in the village of Kalin and the suburban settlements of Kishtim, at a distance of no more than 2 kilometers, to establish all attempts to hide pregnancy, to identify sexually mature girls who gave birth outside maternity wards. If a specific object is identified, conduct an on-site interrogation, then stage it to the FSB Intelligence Department, Yekaterinburg, followed by transfer to a special FSB prison, Moscow region. Additionally, to launch a campaign through all regional and then all Russian media, magazines, newspapers, television, about the insolvency of the version of the alien origin of the embryo, Kishtim 1, confuse the trail, discredit the main witnesses. Katerina lived alone after her mother's death. She didn't consider herself either stupid or smart. She worked on a local farm and was basically happy with life at the age of 25. Now she was lying on the couch crying and staring at the ceiling. Thank God she did it, got rid of it. Was hard to call this creature baby. I just took it and threw it away. The girl shivered. The icy compress on her stomach barely relieved the pain. The baby's head was rigid, consisted of bones, which were reduced to the crown of the bulb by 3 rib petals. During childbirth, she cuddled with every cell of her body. The baby was gray, like a TV screen turned off. It was creepy to think about it, as well as about the dream she had just 3 weeks ago. In her dream, she was lying in her bedroom, on a soft feather bed laid on a shell bed. Small dwarf men with vaulted skulls crowded around her. They were whistling something, but specific images loomed in the girl's head. They asked for her consent to carry out their new man, as they said. The girl clearly understood that it was all a dream. One of the dwarf men took off his face mask and said, "Our new man will not be able to breathe in your atmosphere for a long time, so you will need to be wrapped in a sheet and watered with a weak solution of bleach." A week after this dream, Katerina realized that she was pregnant. I sinned against my neighbor Kostya, but I haven't told him about it yet. They'll see everything later. But 3 weeks later, when contractions pierced her hips and pelvis in the middle of the night, Katerina was truly horrified.
Wherever you are now, in the USA, in Spain, in China, or anywhere else in the world, you have probably heard about the phenomenon of Dyatlov Pass that occurred in Russia. A lot has already been said about this mysterious story. Many films have been shot and many plot materials have been revealed. Therefore, I will not retell and give my expert assessment. Not yet. Today, I want to disclose only a small part of the information from the archives of the main directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces, then simply the GRU. The archive that I got is very valuable. My man took a lot of risk getting me this information. Brings some clarity to the events that took place then. And people should know this. In order to maintain anonymity and comply with the legislation of the country where I am now, I am forced to give the documents an artistic color, but this does not make them real. And so I'm starting. The doctor stood dumbfounded at the corpses lying on the wooden floors. Before his eyes, 3 more dead men were brought inside the morgue. All were barefoot and there were signs of beatings on their faces. When the doctor saw a gouged eye lying on the cheek of a young dead man, he began to vomit. The GRU officer slapped him on the back with his palm.
"What kind of tricks are these? Stand down."
The doctor cleared his throat and wiped his mouth of saliva. He could not relieve himself. He straightened up again and looked at the officer.
"You have a simple task, to decontaminate the corpses before burial. Our employee is coming now. Do you understand?"
The doctor nodded his head mechanically. The word deactivation meant little to him. The profile is not the same. The doctor cleared his throat again.
"Excuse me, Comrade Lieutenant Colonel. Can you think that there is a special laboratory here? I'm a paramedic in a high-security camp. There are only prisoners around. We can't even perform appendicitis surgery here, and you're talking about decontamination or something.
The lieutenant colonel stared with bulging eyes and wiggled his mustache. In appearance, a typical Soviet lieutenant colonel is an incompetent, admitted to secret projects. But this was a mistaken opinion. The lieutenant colonel, a former frontline soldier who reached Berlin from the Moscow region and then North Korea, commanded a special cover group that was alerted and delivered by a special board to Sverdlovsk.
Yes, decontamination. Our employee will arrive and explain everything. And the fact that you are involved in all this, well, I'm sorry. For 100 kilometers around, you only have an institution with a morgue and a closed regime. And in short, paramedic, the last word sounded mocking. Your case is small. To begin with, all the corpses need to be undressed. Not to cut off clothes, but to undress them. And just try to do something wrong.
The lieutenant colonel shoved his fist right under the nose of a thin paramedic, exhausted by insomnia and vitamin deficiency. Having finished his tirade, the GRU lieutenant colonel left the morgue, accompanied by one of his soldiers. Probably now he will go to the head of the camp to drink moonshine and talk about how he fought in 1945 in a bed with young German women. You freak! The doctor looked at the corpses with resignation, and this time he could not resist. Vomiting poured out of his mouth by itself. From the report of the commander of the anti-sabotage unit, Golikov VN.
I bring to your attention that in the special quadrant of conducting contact research, I discovered a group of saboteurs in the number of 9 people, 2 of them women. The group pitched a tent. The liquidation was planned for the night, and I was monitored during the daytime and evening. The liquidation was carried out with cold steel of a non-stabbing type. During the liquidation, 3 saboteurs resisted, engaging in hand-to-hand combat. Destroyed. During the examination of the liquidation site, a Zenit camera was found, seized and handed over to the commander of the cover group. In addition, 3 corpses were examined with a special Type 2 sensor. Traces of radioactive radiation of no more than 2 rem were detected. The skin of all corpses has an orange tint with spots. The radiation was confirmed by the arriving staff of the contact group and the cover group.
The head of the GRU read report after report, frowned and fiddled with a half-empty pack of Nord cigarettes, took out one and lit it. The liquidation report referred to saboteurs, but indirect information confirmed the fears of the head of the GRU. The destroyed group of people were not specially trained agents, but ordinary and homegrown tourists who thought of walking through the Ural Mountains in February. We specially chose the coldest month and specially went to the secret quadrant. Romantics. Fuckers.
What do you think about it?
The head of the GRU handed the list form to his first assistant. The assistant took the sheet, ran his eyes over it.
I have already reported to you every liquidated one has been worked out by us from beginning to end. Let's go through it again. List of liquidated.
Igor Dyatlov is 23 years old.
Zenaida Kolmogorova is 22 years old. Lyudmila Dubinina is 20 years old. Alexander Kolovatov is 24 years old. Yuri Doroshenko is 21 years old. Nicholas Thibault Bruniol is 23 years old. Yuri Krivonischenko is 23 years old. Rustem Slobodin is 23 years old. Alexander Zolotarev is 37 years old. Suspicion is aroused only by one of the members of the expedition, Alexander Zolotarev. Initially, he was not included in the official lists of the expedition from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, Sverdlovsk. In addition, the discovered camera belonged to him.
The head of the GRU frowned and put his fingers in a lock, keeping his hands on the table.
Have the photos been developed?
Yes, everything that we managed to get. I think you are not interested in the chronology of their campaign, but only the facts concerning our department?
Of course.
The first photo. A young girl holds her hand on a pyramidal object, no more than 1 meter high, smiling. Apparently, Zolotarev is photographing her. The second photo. A young guy clasps his hands in a strongman pose, stripped to his tunic, next to the object. The third photo. The same guy is trying to lift a pyramidal object by grabbing the base. Unsuccessfully.
The head of the GRU put down the photos.
Idiots. Who are they?
Lyudmila Dubinina is in the first photo, Igor Dyatlov is the head of the group in the second. It was on Dyatlov that the maximum background was detected. After deactivation, the background decreased, but not totally. It was decided to place the corpse in a frozen stream. When thawing, the stream will additionally deactivate the background.
Where was the initial decontamination carried out?
The assistant gave the name of the camp, in the morgue of which the processing of corpses was carried out.
In addition, all employees, including the camp's paramedic, signed a non-disclosure agreement.
Great. What about the object?
The object was made of ceramic material. Inside the facility were the technologies we needed, which were transferred to us in exchange for permission to conduct experiments on Soviet citizens.
The head of the GRU looked up.
How many times have I asked you not to say that? Just report. Experiments on living objects, so that I don't hear anything more about the citizens of the USSR. Moreover, we are handing over detained smugglers to them, and not citizens of the USSR.
The assistant did not back down.
You know perfectly well that in addition to the living objects provided by us, they themselves kidnap.
That's enough. You are free.
The assistant exited the office with a flourish and slammed the door a little louder than he always did. The head of the GRU did not pay attention to this. He ran through the list of names of the liquidated once again. Yes, the special one, as always, overdid it.
Detailing the elimination of saboteurs. After receiving the command, the Special Liquidation Squad moved directly to the tent installation site. An RPD machine gun burst was fired over the tent. The casings were collected and counted. The command was given to the saboteurs to leave the tent. To do this, one of the fighters used a bayonet knife to cut through the rear awning of the tent. One of the fighters began using a bayonet knife to chop down the rear of the tent in order to bring it down. His actions were stopped by the commander's command. The group of saboteurs was divided. 3 were escorted down the hill, where they were resisted, destroyed during hand-to-hand combat. The elimination of the rest was carried out locally with cold steel of the shock type. The bodies were laid out on the ground and checked with a Type 2 sensor. The necessary object of extraterrestrial origin was discovered nearby, and security was put up. The saboteurs decided to pitch a tent in the immediate vicinity of the facility, which explains its illogical location on the slope.
Yes, they have been eliminated. The head of the GRU took a drag on a cigarette. This stupid and dangerous lieutenant colonel probably allowed his fighters to work out a dozen special techniques on the poor devils instead of simply and quickly eliminating them. Destroyed in hand-to-hand combat. Sure. Well, if there was an opportunity to additionally train people on living people, why not?
Decontamination was carried out in full. The troops were taken to the scene after processing and laid out in accordance with a well-developed scheme. Decontamination assistance was provided by an employee of the ITL-12 paramedic service, URLAG. They did not follow the instructions for decontamination, as a result of which the paramedic received a moderate dose of radiation, and I was given a special drug to eliminate the negative consequences. A non-disclosure agreement was taken from the paramedic. As for the seized camera, it was replaced with an exact analog and also left at the scene. The trail has been completely eliminated. In the aftermath, this tragedy may become a mystery for a possible consequence. I recommend that you work out possible versions in advance and submit them to the competent services in order to form a vector for future investigation. In addition, the contact group must find an opportunity to reach agreements with the alien intelligence, since the objects supplied by them are harmful to the health of the employees of the contact and cover group. In addition to radioactive radiation, the object emitted an unknown field that affected the skin. In addition, the quadrant is used by the USSR Army and the Polygon system to test prototypes of ballistic missiles. I also ask you to adjust this in the future.
The head of the GRU frowned again. Correct it. I wonder how to do this. Just tell the rocket men. Go to another place to test rockets. We have established contacts with extraterrestrial intelligence here. The place of contact cannot be moved. It was chosen by the aliens themselves and a long time ago. Local Mansi willingly told ancient legends for a bottle of vodka, which they had heard from their grandmothers, about iron flying boats and bird people who sometimes took people from the camps. ITL-12, Orlag. Ziyama was not distinguished by special agility or greyhound, a simple peasant who, by chance, was able to find himself in this labor camp in the form of a farm worker who hung around either harvesting firewood for camp needs or burying people's corpses in the funeral team. He was quite used to their appearance during his 12 years of imprisonment. He had seen everyone, and the criminal fraternity around him did not differ in refinement of morals. They could have split a man on a sawmill, or they could have cut off his head with a shovel. This time, he was called back to the paramedic station, and from there they drove him to the morgue. It was obvious, another corpse, but the expectations were not fulfilled. And what is there, Ziyama? What did you see? A seasoned-looking man drank strong tea brewed in half with pine needles from Pelagia, and Ziyama drank just boiling water from a tin mug. It's creepy, dear mother. There are 9 corpses. They look like they've been run over by a tractor, and their skin is kind of yellow-orange. The man put a mug of tea on the stove and looked at Ziyama. Don't whistle. Here's a cross for you. Ziyama crossed himself briefly. Were there any women? Yeah, 2. Well, what were you doing there? Ziyama rubbed his arms and neck. Well, they ordered everyone to undress and then wash them with water from a hose. Everyone took turns and the water had to be collected. Especially their drains were made from tables. The water, some kind of poisonous after them. The man sipped his tea again and neighed, showing rotten teeth. Well, I would have rolled over, checked it out. Okay, you're good at poisoning. Go get my rations. You owe me a chef's face at cards. Run. There is much more evidence, and on our channel we will reveal all the secrets and evidence of their presence. Subscribe to the channel and send me your stories related to aliens by email. You will find contacts in the About the Channel section. If I haven't answered you, then I'm still checking on you because the special services of all countries have announced a hunt for me. But together, we will force the authorities to disclose all the information they have. After all, people should know the truth. Mysterious events are constantly taking place on the territory of the Russian Federation, many of which have no explanation. But my events are getting such a big response that the authorities have to intervene. No, they are not intervening in order to understand the true nature of the incident. Believe me, they have sufficient information. They interfere to hide the truth from people. Isn't it true? The real truth is, it's very scary. Today I will share with you another secret documents, this time about the famous Tunguska meteorite. Believe me, the truth may shock you. As always, for security reasons, all names have been changed and the documents have been given an artistic color. And so, I'm starting. The 3 cadets entered a small darkened room with no windows. Each of them felt a certain excitement at that moment. The course of special training within the framework of the secret research program, Open Sky, was continuing. Each of the cadets has received special training. A man dressed in civilian clothes, namely a business suit like a tuxedo, entered the room.
Greetings, cadets.
The 3 guys, by the way, did not look at all athletic, stood at attention. The sudden movement knocked the glasses off the tallest guy. He threw his head up too much. The man who came, seeing how the guy was blindly searching the floor in a darkened room, approached him, picked up his glasses from the floor and handed them to the guy.
Cadet Igorov, we need to be more careful. Get yourself cleaned up.
Igorov put on his glasses and mumbled something guiltily.
So, today you have a graduation. Final assignment. You have all been trained and are ready to perform specific tasks related to mental activity. I'm not giving you a task. You have to interpret it yourself from those mental images and forms that will be transmitted to you. Is everyone ready?
The guys answered discordantly.
That's right.
The officer, and only an officer could talk to them in such a tone, nodded his head approvingly.
So, Private Igorov, you remain in this room. Privates Samoilov and Zelinsky, go to the following rooms. After completing the task, you will be given time. State everything in detailed reports.
When Igorov was left alone, the light was completely extinguished. The guy did not obey military discipline. The profile was too specific, not implying drill. He let his thoughts flow freely. They flowed into his mind like a river. It was the time of contact, the starting point, and the exposure time. Igorov sat down directly on the floor, moved back to the wall and rested his back against it, unbuttoned the collar of his tunic. Now the right toggle switch will work in the brain. There will be a click and everything will go like clockwork. He called it the X time, the time when miracles happen. This ability was noticed by him in childhood and then demonstrated to his mother. Then he easily read her thoughts, even the most secret ones. Later, for better or worse, this gift was revealed during military service. And here he is. He was noticed, selected, and began to train, trying to strengthen specific capabilities. Images poured into my head, layered with geometric shapes, from which the necessary templates and patterns of future reality or past events were formed, about which information had to be read as part of the task. His heart was throbbing in his ears. Igor felt blood flow from his nose. A warm trickle flowed under his nose, then over his lips and out onto his chin. Everything was fine. From the report of Private Maxim Andreevich Igorov, 19 years old.
I received stable thought forms about the Tunguska meteorite and about the true interpretation of the event. The data is read from the mind of a direct participant in the events. I bring them to your attention in the personal feelings, experiences, and actions of a direct participant.
3 research ships hovered in the orbit of the blue planet. The creatures inhabiting this planet are very hesitant to enter the atmosphere at relatively low altitudes using primitive devices. It will take more than 1 generation until they begin to confidently go into space. First to the surface of their planet, then into their star system, and more than 100 years until they master space flights through wormholes, and subspace. The captain of the research ship was sitting at the dashboard, activating the necessary systems with light touches, monitoring the readings of the instruments.
Captain Garikina, currently automatic systems are aimed at troubleshooting the tachyon motor coil. There is a powerful cavitation of solar winds in this system.
The captain nodded his bald head. A completely human head, but only trimmed into a fancy ponytail that descends in an even wedge to the back of the neck.
It will take from 15 to 18 turnaround cycles for repairs. We can't orbit their planet for that long. I order you to redirect the charging systems to the energy of their sun. Let's charge up with solar winds. There will be enough energy to maneuver and break through the wormhole. In our system, we can do without tachyon coils.
Varian's employee sat down in the control chair, and after a few seconds fused with him. The chair absorbed his body, clothed him in translucent shells. That was Variana's fate. Only he had a connection to the ship's biological machine. The technology of growing quantum biological computers was based on the fusion of a ship and a thinking living being. But there was also a significant drawback in this. The speed of the living brain was unstable and short-lived, so Variana was forced to arrive by ship forever. They couldn't live without each other. Variana fed his psyche with quantum forces drawn from space itself, and the ship was fed by Variana's mental forces. Each navigator lived no more than 5 to 6 Earth years, and after that, his psyche could not stand it. It was said about such people, dissolved by the cosmos. Variana had been piloting his ship for the 4th year. The ship's power was redirected to absorb solar winds. The entire crew felt it. Their eyes lit up with an iridescent sheen, static electricity condensed on their fingertips. Captain Gerakina smiled happily. After all, this system was promising not because of the primitive creatures inhabiting it, but precisely because of their main luminary, which was called by the ancient ancestors of the cosmic civilization with a proud word, Ra. Everything was going according to plan, but suddenly an unforeseen and terrible thing happened. A cone-shaped shuttle of a hostile civilization appeared from the cosmic abyss. Bypassing the research ships, he headed straight for Earth. Variana began to shake under the shells. Gerakina bent over the instruments.
It's them. They found us. They came out of the black spectrum. We can't hide.
Mental images and kinetic streams of mental waves from the other 2 ships poured into Gerakina's mind.
We don't have any weapons. Charging is not completed. These are roids. They've been following us, and now they know about this system.
Gerakina put mental blocks and cut off the panic.
They knew about this system. We found their tracks. Everyone prepare for the transfer of consciousness to the templates on their home planet. Variana and I will stop them. The rest of you get ready to move and go into subspace. Bring the ships to self-destruct.
A storm of negative energy burst into my thoughts.
Gerakina, we will not leave you. We're going to die with you. Ra will receive us all.
Gerakina put another mental block. He needed clarity of thought.
No, send your ships to the moon. Someday the people of this planet will get to them. Our technology will help them. I believe that reason will prevail, and they themselves will someday reach our planet and be accepted into the Brotherhood. Then they will understand the essence of their origin. Get ready to move.
Jerakina set up the third block when he saw firsthand how two neighboring ships pushed off from the void and slowly sailed towards the gray sphere of the moon in Earth orbit. Jerakina looked at Variana, who was engulfed by the ship. He understood that solar energy is not the same as tachyon energy. The ship will not go smoothly. Most likely it will immediately be carried into subspace and carried at an exorbitant speed until the tachyon revolution stops the effect of the converted solar ion energy. But this sudden, rapid leap could have made the ship itself, its entire mass, a weapon. The decision was made.
Variana, we have to stop them. They are the destroyers of worlds and souls. Read my thoughts, Variana.
The navigator was shaking under the shells, but was fully aware of what had happened.
They'll be in the planet's atmosphere in a few minutes. It's now or never. Variana, we will sweep by with a swift solar spear and pierce the darkness into his filthy heart. Now.
Variana screamed, and at that moment the ship rushed to the surface of the Earth in front of the combat shuttle of the evil aliens. At the last second, Jerakina activated the Annihilator in order to split all possible debris into constituent molecules. At incredible speed, the research ship drove its oblong hull into the cone-shaped ship of evil. The explosion was partially absorbed by the Annihilator, but not all of it. The disaster occurred in the area of Podkamenaya Tunguska. Later, the event was named as the phenomenon of the Tunguska meteorite, becoming a mystery to mankind. Unfortunately, neither Variana nor Jerakina were able to carry out the transfer of consciousness, like the crews of other ships. It was necessary to control the ship until the last mortal moment. Also, Jerakina and Variana did not find out that the Roids had long known about the Earth and had long been involved in the development of mankind, instilling in it all the most vile and vicious, but did not manifest themselves explicitly. Perhaps just now, an attempt at an explicit manifestation was stopped. Igorov blinked his eyes. He saw everything through Jerakina's eyes. He felt it with sensations and emotions. He was coming to himself little by little. I tried to wipe the dried blood from my chin and nose. He told the whole story in the form of a report and gave it to the controller, a man in a business suit. The report of the supervisor instructor.
In the course of mental research, stable and extraordinary data were obtained from only one cadet, Maxim Andreevich Egorov. The rest of the cadets did not survive the ordeal due to a strong, uncontrollable mental storm. Private Zelinsky showed signs of debility and stupor for 3 hours after contact, then died. Samoylov was unable to make contact, died of a simultaneous heart attack and stroke.
As for the data obtained, I submit 3 theses for your consideration.
Thesis number 1. The phenomenon of the Tunguska meteorite is not associated with the manifestation of natural forces of a cosmic nature, but with the actions of extraterrestrial civilizations, namely, the battle of spaceships. In addition, the ability of the space race to empathize and sacrifice has been revealed. One of the races showed hostility. This is also an important factor. Thesis number 2. On the moon, in an unidentified quadrant, there are fragments of 2 spacecraft, probably with the bodies of dead aliens. Thesis number 3. Our civilization originated from a cosmic race of humanoid beings. Our planet has been visited by them many times. Perhaps some artifacts have been left on the planet.
The controller completed the report and slapped a stamp on it. Research Institute of Hidden Possibilities of the Brain and Psyche. 1958, the implementation of the USSR Luna program, Luna 2. Variana did not die immediately. For a while, he was supported by the psychic powers of the ship, even after the death of his body. The connection was so powerful that at the moments of fusion, it could project images into spaces beyond the apparent world. In many human religions, this subspace is called paradise. The ship's voice was insinuating and kind.
Variana, does it hurt you?
No, I feel calm and good. I know emptiness will come soon, and I will become a stream of raw energy. I feel good.
But the feeling of bliss was replaced by quite tangible pain. Black threads began to entangle the alien's energy shell. From golden, it turned blue and then black.
What is this? Ship? What's wrong with me?
I'm sorry, Variana. There's nothing I can do.
They want to steal your soul. Sorry. If you think that this is not proof of the existence of aliens, then you are right. There is much more evidence, and on our channel we will reveal all the secrets and evidence of their presence. Subscribe to the channel and send me your stories related to aliens by email. You will find context in the About the Channel section. Together we will force the authorities of all countries to disclose all the information they have. After all, people should know the truth.